Go for it, Mike.
I'm trying. I'm smiling.
If you're smiling, that's good. People can hear that. They can tell.
Yeah.
It's infectious. Hey guys, in this week's episode, we're going to review 12 Angry Men. But before we get to them, we're also going to talk about the Criterion releases for February and March 2020, Six Underground, Little Women, Mandalorian Season 1, so much more. Get ready.
Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me, as sometimes, is Mike. How are you doing today?
With me, as sometimes, I've missed maybe 2 episodes since I've joined the podcast.
Yeah, you're right. You haven't missed very many, but it felt weird to say always, like I say now. But I just...
If you've missed 2, you haven't always been here.
Yeah.
So we've all sometimes been here.
That's true.
Yes. Also with us is a man who knows the secret to being angry, and that's that he's always angry. Justin, how are you doing today?
Justin.
I'm so mad right now. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm just furious.
Yeah, for sure.
And raging over here.
I can hear the frown, so.
That wasn't a laugh. That was an angry snort.
And if this is your first time listening, this is a Casually Criterion episode, which is, you guessed it, a Criterion Collection focused episode that we do every other week, except for last month where we tried to fit in a whole bunch of new movies. But normally, every other week, we review a film from the Criterion Collection that is voted on by the listeners. Before we get to our main review of 12 Angry Men, we'll be doing our usual News on the March, where we talk about recent news, things we've been watching. And if you haven't seen the movie, you can still listen. And then we will move into our Casually Criterion review for 12 Angry Men, spine number 591.
You know, if you add 5 and 9 and then subtract 1, you get 12. Just like 12 Angry Men.
Oh my.
So do you think they did spine number 591 on purpose?
Yes.
I would like to say yes.
Actually, that math is wrong, because that would equal 13.
Oh, then no, you idiot.
I did it quickly in my head. That wasn't planned at all, and it shows because the math is bad.
I think the fact that we even brought that up probably shows that it wasn't planned at all.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I just thought it. I was like, oh, there's a 12. I wonder if it's like a special spine number. It's not. Because it equals 14.
Are you sure about that math?
Well,
it equals 13.
The way I said it equals 13. I'm sorry. Then I was thinking that you add them all together.
Maybe
and that's 14.
They're teasing a sequel.
Maybe as viewer, you are the 13th Angry Man.
Yeah.
And they're like really next level.
Or woman.
Or woman.
Person. Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Well.
Yeah, take us out of this, please.
Since we're doing 12 Angry Men, sorry. So the reason we're doing 12 Angry Men, as Mike said, is that these films are chosen by the listeners. So we put out a poll every time we do one of these episodes to choose the film for our next episode. If you want to vote in that poll, you can vote on Twitter at Casual Cinecast. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. If you have any questions or topics for us to discuss about the movies that we're reviewing each week, you can send those to those social media accounts or to casualcinemedia at gmail.com. And then, of course, if you like the show and you haven't done so already, go onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review so you can help other people find the show and vote and, you know, get a better representation of what the people want us to review from the Criterion Collection.
Help us make the show better so we can help you.
Yes.
It was the first time trying that out. I didn't know if it would work, but
swimmingly.
Probably won't do it next week.
Yeah. Well, should we move into the news on the march?
Yes.
News on the march.
All right, so first up on News on the March, we're going to talk about the Criterion release announcements for February and March of 2020. Since we missed last month, we didn't get February's in, so we're going to do them both right now. So we're just going to run through the releases real quick. Starting with February 11th, we have Roma from Alfonso Cuarón. Mm-hmm. Then two movies on February 18th, Teorema from Pier Paolo Pasolini and Antonio Gaudi from Hiroshi Teshigahara. And then on February 25th, we have a box set, 3 Fantastic Journeys by Carol Zeman.
Also on February 25th, we have Paris is Burning by Ginny Livingston. On March 10th, we have Salesman by David Maysles, Albert Maysles, and Charlotte Zerwin. On March 17th, we have Bamboozled by Spike Lee. And on March 24th, we have Leave Her to Heaven by John M. Stahl.
Also on March 24th, we have The Cranes Are Flying by Mikhail Kalatozov. March 31st, we have Showboat by James Whale. And then on March 31st, we have The Prince of Tides from Barbra Streisand.
So a lot to catch up on, but we should talk about, I think, one of them that is a very important release and is even, I think, more important considering the context of recent news that's come out. But I want to talk about the fact that they're releasing Roma.
Yes, I was hoping that's the one.
Yeah, a Netflix original.
Yeah, so this is exciting because right now I think Roma doesn't have any kind of physical release, and Netflix pretty much does not value physical releases at all. So the idea that Criterion is having some kind of partnership with them to release some of their more exceptional movies on physical media, I think is actually really awesome. What do you guys think?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting, to think about some of the quality movies that we've gotten from Netflix, since they've really stepped up their movie game, at least on a few movies a year. To think that some of those movies, things like The Irishman and Marriage Story, could potentially come to Criterion.
Yeah, that is actually really exciting. And I guess my only hesitation is that if you have a 4K TV, it would still probably be better quality to watch these movies on Netflix itself than maybe even a Blu-ray, since Criterion doesn't really dabble in 4K Blu-rays at all. What do you guys think about? I mean, they have special features, which I guess would be worth it in and of itself if you really, really love the movie. But I do hope that maybe there's some 4K somewhere in the future for physical releases, I guess, for Criterion.
I'm sure there will be, down the road. It's probably hard to commit to because then they're kind of outdating all of their Blu-rays.
People are already upset about what hasn't been upgraded to Blu-ray.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I think it's exciting, though, that Netflix is so willing to actually work with Criterion on these things, because right now we've never had, other than maybe the occasional Wes Anderson movie or something like that, we don't really have that many contemporary movies finding their release on Criterion for the first time. I think Benjamin Button is the last one that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure. It is really exciting. And I think, like what you were saying, Mike, the special features do make it worth it, even if it may be better quality streaming on Netflix. So I think the special features and maybe a commentary track, which actually brings to mind, why wouldn't they just put a commentary track on Netflix? They could do the special features themselves, even.
I wouldn't be surprised that maybe, well, I can see how Criterion maybe would be like, hey, we're going to make some special features to this, but we want some incentive to buy the physical release, so don't use them. But I can also equally see them being like, cool, you created special features? Give them to
now
us.
They're
we'll
on
put
Netflix.
them on there,
And I guess you're right. They don't care about... They're probably making a little bit of money off of this just by letting Criterion take the reins and release it. There's some sort of royalties, or they probably get a certain percentage of the DVD sales.
Yeah.
So there's probably something incentive-wise for them there. But
yeah.
And it is the Criterion collection, so there is a value to those who care, right? To have it as part of their collection and actually have a physical thing that you can... hold and put alongside your other Criterion collection movies, right?
Yeah,
so there's a value in that. And I do think it's interesting that Netflix is dabbling in the special features on some things. Have you guys watched The Irishman? It's a conversation with Scorsese, De Niro, Pacino, and Pesci sitting around a table just talking for, I think it's 15 minutes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Wow.
Maybe 20. Talking about The Irishman and some other things.
Yeah, I wish they would do that with more movies.
Yeah, the only other one I've noticed so far that they've done it on is the American Factory documentary. They have a conversation with the Obamas and the filmmakers in a diner.
Interesting.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting for sure.
Yeah.
It's not as interesting as I hoped it would be, but it's fine. It's interesting in concept, if not in content.
Yeah. But I could always use some more making ofs and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
up the game on special features, I guess. Disney Plus has special features. I don't know if you guys know that. Like, I went and watched all the Star Wars movies again recently, and they have like deleted scenes and all kinds of stuff on there. In fact, The Last Jedi that actually got added on December 26th, if you watch that on Disney Plus, it has a score-only version of the film where all audio except for the score is taken out. It also has a director commentary version of the film, as well as a bunch of deleted scenes, all with director's commentary.
Awesome.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so going forward, I'm hoping that Disney Plus sets like a new standard for special features and extras and stuff.
Yeah, as long as they're putting onto the streaming services like what they would put into a DVD release, because I really miss commentaries, you know.
Oh, me too, man.
So, like, if they go ahead and just take that extra mile, like, I don't know that it would take that much more effort to just put a commentary track on like the Two Popes or Marriage Story or whatever, you know, like I wouldn't mind something along those lines.
Yeah. Have you seen The Two Popes, Chris?
I haven't. I really want to. It's kind of on my list for tonight.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I don't like it, but we can talk about that off air.
Okay.
Cool. Well, anybody got anything else they want to talk about in terms of Criterion new releases?
No, not really, other than something interesting dropped today, or I think this morning, that Chris put into our Casually Criterion Slack.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, do you want to?
Well, I'm not too 100% sure on that. I guess as a rumor, we can talk about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, let's talk about it as a rumor then.
Yeah. So a rumor that I saw on the interwebs, like a Criterion group that I'm a part of, someone popped in that they might be doing a Marriage Story Criterion release. Like somehow it got confirmed through Noah Baumbach, I believe. Like maybe he tweeted something about it.
Which is
I thought
cool.
he said that it was in a Q&A for the
yeah.
film that he suggested that it was going to come to Criterion.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that the fact that Roma is getting a release like this kind of just alludes that we're going to get more of these from Netflix, I think. The stuff like Marriage Story. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that. I would plop down $30 for Marriage Story, you know.
Yeah. And I look forward to the Adam Sandler Netflix days box set from Criterion. The Netflix years.
Well, I mean, you joke, but we actually might get the Meyerowitz stories.
Yeah, with Adam Sandler in it. That would be an interesting one.
Probably not what you would think would be in that box set, but yay.
Yeah, and Ridiculous 6, too. Throw that in there.
Ridiculous 6.
Murder Mystery. Isn't that the name of the new one?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a Western one, too.
Anyways.
That's the Ridiculous 6, I think, is the Western one.
Oh.
Speaking of bad movies with 6 on the title on Netflix, I watched a movie.
That's what I thought Justin was talking about.
Yep. No, it's actually a different movie with 6 on the title that's on Netflix that is
also
called
Ridiculous.
Yeah, directed by Michael Bay, a new Michael Bay movie hit, guys, and starring Ryan Reynolds and a bunch of other people, and it's called 6 Underground.
And to tie this to Criterion, Michael Bay has 2 movies that are in the Criterion collection, so maybe this is headed.
There you go. Anyways, have you guys seen this movie, 6 Underground, or have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I have not seen it, though.
I've only seen it in the way that Netflix crams anything it drops in your face that's popular.
Yeah.
I don't know anything else about it, though.
Yeah. Well, I watched this movie the other day because it just dropped. I just got a new TV for Christmas, so I was looking for, something pretty to watch. And say what you will about Michael Bay's movies, usually they look good.
Yeah. I agree. I admire the filmmaking in them.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like the way that they look and camera movement and
the technical artistry involved in what he does is unmatched in a lot of places. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain style that he has, and there's a reason he gets hired for these things is because he can film a pretty picture. Anyways, so that was my logic going in to 6 Underground. I am not the biggest Michael Bay fan. I don't think I like any of the Transformers movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I like a single Michael Bay movie, to be honest with you. Even the Criterion released the beloved The Rock.
I like The Rock.
I don't think it's a good movie. I never did.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
I like The Rock, and I have fun during Bad Boys 2.
I like how Bad Boys 2 was the next one you went to. Not Armageddon. Not even Bad Boys 1.
I have fun watching the commentary done for Criterion for Armageddon.
I haven't seen it.
It's fun. It's
Ben
Affleck is I don't think he's the biggest fan of the movie, and he kind of makes fun of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was pretty in fashion to make fun of Armageddon pretty quickly after it came out.
Yeah.
Anyways. Yeah. Anyway, 6 Underground. Guys, this is Michael Bay, free of the Transformers franchise, I guess. I think this is his first movie outside of the Transformers franchise since Pain and Gain.
He did that one with the guy from The Office, John Krasinski.
I think he just produced that, didn't he?
I thought he directed it, but we can check.
Yeah, 13 Hours? Is that the one you're talking about? You may be right. Who cares? Anyway, Michael Bay sucks, and this movie is bad.
He did direct 13 Hours.
Okay, I was wrong. I saw that, actually. That movie's better than this one. Have you guys seen either one of those movies?
No.
Yeah, they're rough, but I think 6 Underground takes the cake as far as being the shamelessly, like, the worst of Michael Bay.
Yeah.
Picture all the worst tendencies of a Michael Bay movie, like dialogue is bad, plot doesn't matter, but pretty images, and that is this movie to a T. It's like, it's 2 hours and 15, 20 minutes. I don't even remember how long this movie is. I was bored so quickly into it that it felt like 3 hours. This movie is about a billionaire, Ryan Reynolds, who fakes his death and then hires a team of 5 other people who want to escape life and live as a ghost. So they fake their deaths, and officially they are declared dead, and they form a team that,
The Justice League?
kind of like it's like a team of Batman, essentially, that don't dress up, but Ryan Reynolds funds them all, and he's like the rich leader, and his team consists of a bunch of wacky characters and girls that can fight and look pretty at the same time, as you can imagine a Michael Bay movie would be. But anyway, this movie is all kinds of terrible. I just brought it up just to quickly say that I do not recommend this movie at all. I wanted to watch a bad movie. I rate all my movies on Letterboxd, and here lately I've been going through the year, and I noticed that I tend to avoid movies I think are going to be bad. Which makes sense, right? Because why watch a bad movie? But
we only have so much time on this earth.
Exactly. But at the same time, you can't really appreciate good movies unless every now and then you see some bad movies,
Yeah.
Do you guys ever do that? You just want to watch something that you know is probably going to be bad, but you don't really care?
Yeah. I watched Dude, Where's My Car on New Year's Eve.
There you go.
And I knew it was going to be bad.
Drop Dead Fred last week.
Both of those sound better than 6 Underground.
Probably.
In fact, I've seen both of them and can assure you they're both better than 6 Underground.
Yeah, well, so I had a thing with Michael Bay that even though I did not like Transformers or Transformers 2, when the third one came out, I just had this desire to go watch the mayhem or the Bayham, if you will, on like the big screen, and just to have like this visual audio assault. Like I don't know why, but I just had this giant urge. I was like, I have to go see Transformers 3.
Yeah.
It's just going to be wild, and I know what I'm in for, and I don't know. I just need to do it.
Yeah. Was it worth it at the end of the day?
Sure. Why not? I don't regret it.
Yeah. I'm glad I got to see this for free. Let's put it that way. If I had gone to the theaters to see it, I probably would definitely regret it. It's worse than any Transformer movie.
Oh.
I've only seen 2.5 Transformer movies, though.
All right. Fair enough. Noted. I will probably not watch it.
No, I don't recommend it. But at the same time, I kind of do, because it is pretty.
I was going to say you didn't, but then it sounds like you do, because you have to see the bad movies to appreciate the good movie.
Yeah, I mean, I got my quota in for the month, right?
Sense.
Like, I think, basically, when I look at my Letterboxd like ratings over the month, and I log them all, and I see that it's like 3 stars, 3.5 stars, 4 stars, 4.5 stars. It's like that means less unless there's like a 2 star in there or a 1 star every now and then,
Yeah.
Your 3 star becomes a 1 star.
Exactly. So you gotta, like, for perspective, and just so people know that, like, you actually like have standards, you gotta like watch some bad movies every now and then.
Yeah. That's fair.
So 6 Underground.
Yeah.
And real quick, done talking about bad movies. Real quick, I just elephant in the room. I wasn't on last week's episode. If you're a regular listener to the show, you know that. You noticed, probably. I hope.
I noticed.
Thank you. And you guys watched Uncut Gems. And I actually haven't even listened to your guys' full episode because I only saw the movie 2 days ago.
Yeah. And the episode is 2.5 days long.
Yeah, exactly. So there was no time for me to fit it in before I got here. But I honestly, I assume you guys like it based on your Letterboxd ratings. But I kind of wanted to just talk about it with you briefly. I saw this movie and I also enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it's really good. I think if you are a fan of Good Time, picture Good Time with a slightly more likable protagonist and then like shoot steroids into the movie so that it's like 4 times as potent. That's that movie. That's Uncut Gems, basically. This movie is crazy. Adam Sandler is firing on all cylinders. This is the best Adam Sandler performance, hands down, that I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
I would be surprised if he ever tops this in his career. This movie, you could tell that it was made for him. He is on fire the whole movie. He is so infinitely watchable. But man, this movie is incredibly frustrating. But at the same time, it's like watching a train wreck happen in slow motion.
Right.
And you can't not look at it. And anyways, it's really good. I'm still kind of unpacking where it'll fall on the ultimate like list of movies of the year, you know, but I really enjoyed it. And I'm excited to go back and listen to you guys' episode on it.
Yeah. To clarify, you said it's frustrating. It's not frustrating from like a filmmaking standpoint or like critique of the film. Is it more, it's like frustrating to watch because of the actions the characters take and like is that what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's about a gambler, right? Like a degenerate gambler addict, I guess. I don't know what you call him. Gambler addict?
Gambling addict, yeah.
Gambling addict? There we go. I don't know why I made this so much more difficult than it needed to be. But, but yeah, anyways, it's just really frustrating because it's a character that I can't even for a moment identify with. Right? Like I don't think the same way he does. I don't like the same things he does. I don't like everything he does and that he seems to enjoy in his life is what I actively tend to avoid in mine. Yeah. So it's frustrating in that sense, but also it's like it's a fascinating thing going on this adventure, living this life with this man, Howard, so that you don't have to live that life, you know?
Yeah. He walks on the edge for his entire life, and I don't ever want to get near that edge. Yeah. Like I want to stay 10 feet back from it. I feel
like I would just be a ball of anxiety and I would just get cancer within like 3 years of just like worrying all the time. Yeah. But anyways, Uncut Gems, it's a ride. Go see it in theaters if you can. It's
agreed.
It's something else. And I would be excited to see Adam Sandler get some Academy Awards nomination love, but I don't know, in such a strong year, who knows? But I'm pretty sure he'll at least get a nom. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think he'll get nominated.
Yeah, if it were up to me, yeah, I don't know that he would win because, as you said, it's a strong year. But yeah, at least the nomination I think is deserved.
Yeah, that's all I had about Uncut Gems. I really liked it, and I am sorry I did not get to watch it in time for our last week's episode, but things got moved around. Wasn't my fault.
It's a busy time of the year, man.
Yeah. Well, moving on, I think.
Go ahead.
This weekend, I saw, and I think Chris also saw, Little Women. So, Mike, you have not seen it yet. So just like forewarning, we're not going to be really talking about this in any great detail. But I did want to talk about it because I liked this movie a whole lot more than I thought I was going to. Even though I was very impressed with Greta Gerwig's previous film, Lady Bird. That was my favorite film of that year, which was 2017. So I was very impressed by her with Lady Bird. So I was, interested to see Little Women, but it just, everything I know about Little Women doesn't seem like a type of movie that would speak to me. As I'd never read the book and I've never seen any of the other adaptations.
Me either.
Of it.
I've never seen any version of Little Women and honestly have no idea what it's about.
Yeah, that's the boat that I was in. And so, I went in basically just because it was Greta Gerwig and a lot of really great actresses. And I was not disappointed at all. Like the film just completely I was enamored with it the whole time that I was watching it and just, just having such a good time watching such a great film. And I'm trying to be vague, I guess, and not even give away too much about the emotions that I was feeling. But it's one of those experiences that for me, made me so happy that I go see movies all the time. And I'm so much more open to movies, it's the theater going experience that makes it feel like, oh yes, all the times that I go see movies and like I see one that I'm disappointed in or whatever, like it's all worth it for when you get to like catch something somewhat unexpected for me like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is the high that you're chasing.
Yes. But I just really enjoyed it, and I plan to go see it again before it gets out of theaters, which is not something I do that regularly. So yeah, I'm just very high on it. Chris, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I really love this movie. The thing that I want to say about it that I think speaks most to what the movie is without giving anything away is I just wanted to spend more time with that family, you know?
Yes.
There was hardly, to my recollection, there wasn't any like missteps where I was like, oh, that's weird. I just wanted to spend more time with them and on their hijinks, you know, like, and that's, I think, the highest praise for this type of movie that you can give it. Like, I just wanted to spend more time with them. I could have done another hour or two, you know. I liked all the performances. I think Florence Pugh is like, she was in 3 movies this year that I know of. Fighting with My Family, which I didn't see, but then Midsommar and now Little Women. And she has like surprised me at every turn. Like she is really great in this. There's like a couple of really, really funny moments that she gives in this. All the actors in this are really good, but like Florence Pugh, for whatever reason, just kind of stood out to me. I think but yeah, so I really enjoy this. I completely recommend. I do know I went to work after I watched this, and you know, people at work know that I go see a lot of movies. So like, especially on my days off, they're like, "Hey, what'd you watch?" And I was like, Little Women. And I've got this guy that I work with is from New York, and he's like, "What? You went and saw a female movie?" You know, and I was like, "What? That doesn't like." It didn't make any sense, and it's not just a female movie. You know, like it's not. There's a lot more to it than just being a chick flick or anything like that. It's really, really wonderful.
Yeah, and at the same time, like it's a good movie to take like your girlfriend or your fiance or your wife or whatever to go see. Like it's PG, you know.
It's a good family movie. Yeah.
Yeah, like you could really. It's one of those things you could see with anybody, and you know sometimes that can take movies down right to like a lower common denominator, right? But
yeah, they feel too safe.
Yeah, it doesn't feel that way. Well, yeah, so strong recommendation from Little Women from me and Chris, and that's pretty much it. We don't want to talk about more because I don't want to give anything away to Mike, who hasn't seen or like hasn't seen any version of it or read the book and doesn't know anything, because that's how I was, and I think the movie was better. And
I do think Mike will be a little upset when the atomic bomb goes off in Little Women.
Yeah.
He won't like that.
It's true.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
I like how we live in a post-Lost world and you still make that joke.
It's only funny to me. One of the other things that doesn't have any atomic bomb explosions going off that ended recently, semi-recently, but we kind of wanted to wait to talk about it with Mike, was The Mandalorian. Season 1 finished. And yeah, I gotta say, I really enjoyed the front end of this season and the end of the season. I thought those were really, really great. The middle part was good, but it wasn't as great as the two end pieces. But I really, really liked The Mandalorian. It's really actually kind of what I wanted the movies to be. I wanted to get that feeling from the movies, to be honest. Rise of Skywalker, at least. But yeah, The Mandalorian. I really liked it. Did you guys finish it up?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I watched all the episodes, I think, pretty much as they came out, like at like 2 a.m. each time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, in my opinion, this is the future of Star Wars. I think they should focus less on movies and more on Disney Plus content, because Star Wars just lends itself to serialized storytelling, and I think The Mandalorian just shows that you can take your time, really flesh out the world, really build some characters, and it just works so much better in movies. So now that they're done with the Skywalker saga and all the movies, I know they have more movies coming in a couple of years, but I honestly, if they like announced that they had no plans for future movies and they were just going to focus on like TV shows and Disney Plus content, I wouldn't be upset. And that's coming from a guy who really, really, really likes Star Wars. And I even liked all the movies, you know. But that said, I think Star Wars just fits in the TV format so much better.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about the TV format and like, or at least the way that they've done it with Mandalorian, I like the small scale of it and how we're kind of focused in on this one little like group of people, and it's not, I guess it's not really like a small section of the galaxy, but I don't know. I like the epicness of a movie release and like the anticipation for that, and like there's something more wider, like the movies are much wider in scope, right? And I like seeing things like happen on a very like galactic level in the movies. So I think, I don't know, I would miss that unless I guess they bring that to like these TV series.
I was about to say, I think they could probably bring that to the TV series. I mean, we're only in the first 8 episodes, and I guess, by the way, if you don't want to hear any spoilers for The Mandalorian, probably just skip to the movie review at this point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was your warning. But the last 60 seconds of The Mandalorian Season 1 leads me to believe that the scope is going to get a lot larger. Or maybe not a lot larger, but certainly much larger than it was in Season 1.
Yeah.
For sure, for the lore, there's going to be some larger stuff going on.
Yeah. The overarching story, I guess, I think is going to get bigger. But it still, I think, is always going to be a lot of what a lot of people didn't like in this season, which is like Adventure of the Week, you know? I think it's going to follow a lot of the Star Wars cartoon format, which is like, okay, let's say you have a 10-episode season. 4 of those episodes are going to be standalone one-offs, you know, and the rest of them will loosely tie in, which is, and I think a lot of people were complaining about that in The Mandalorian, but I think that's kind of the essence of what Star Wars TV, at least so far in the animated series, has been. You'll have arcs that last over all the season, but mainly it's going to be like a Adventure of the Week kind of thing.
If I'm honest, the middle of the season when it did that sort of thing were the weakest episodes to me, and the ones that I was just kind of I felt sort of mediocre about.
Sure, I agree with that, but I think as long as it pays off like it did in the end of the season, I care less in retrospect about those weeks, right? Like episode 4 was my least favorite, and it's still my least favorite of the season, and then episode 5 shortly after that. But at least episode 4 introduced a new character that came back at the end, right? So it wasn't like a complete one-off adventure that you could just skip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah.
I liked her character, and once she came back, I was like, you know, I was happy to see her back, whereas when she was just that one character in one episode, I was like, I don't know, I kind of didn't like her.
Yeah, I agree with that. But, you know, I wish I was kind of bummed out at the end. I like how she's choosing to stay on that planet with Carl Weathers, and then we'll get to probably visit her next season along with Carl Weathers. But at the same time, I want the Mandalorian to have more friends, like, along with him to bounce off of, you know?
I think the show got better, like, in these last couple episodes where he did get that entourage together of the people we had met. That's when I felt like the show was at its best.
Yeah, it really paid off, and it wasn't afraid to, you know, kill some of the characters. And I felt that, you know, there's 2 character deaths, and I felt touched by both of them. You know, like I wasn't like crying or anything, but I was attached to both of those characters.
Yeah,
and upset that they had to die because I wanted to hang out with them more. You know, like I wanted the Mandalorian to hang out with them more. So yeah. I think one of the things I really liked about The Mandalorian, and I like The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi quite a bit, but what The Mandalorian does is it kind of recontextualizes Star Wars to a certain extent. Like, we got new music. It felt new and fresh to me in a way that the sequel trilogy didn't. And while I enjoyed those movies, this is, I kind of think, what I wanted a little bit more of, you know, like, and maybe we'll get that more from the movies in the future.
Well, that's what I was saying in our actual Rise of Skywalker review, which is, I was saying, like, and I think everyone knows it at this point, so heads up for Rise of Skywalker, slight spoilers, but that's why I didn't really mind the whole Palpatine stuff in the Rise of Skywalker, is because I feel like if your goal is to end the Skywalker saga in the episodic films at this point, which is what they say their plan is, even though we probably all believe they're going to come out with more later, but
kind of walk that back too.
Yeah, for now, they're trying to keep the story that has, for, you know, most of the episodes previously been a soap opera about family dynamics and, you know, generational trauma and familial bonds and good and evil and all that stuff, right? So I understand the urge to do everything they did in The Rise of Skywalker, but now that that story is done, I want different things. Like I was a little bit more forgiving of it than a lot of people were, because just for the sake of like bookending the story and making it feel like one cohesive story with a beginning and an end, you know, in 9 parts. But now that they have done that, I agree with you. I want more stuff like this. Characters I don't know, adventures I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Explore. This is a great big sandbox you have. Go nuts, you know.
Yeah, have fun with genre, too. I think you can have a lot of different genres in the Star Wars universe.
Yep, exactly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to see a Seven Samurai remake of Star Wars, and we got a condensed version of that in episode 4 of The Mandalorian, but like, you know, the point is you can do so much. Like the fact that you can take an entire plot of classic movies and do a one-off adventure of the week on Disney Plus, I think is gonna be good, because I think going forward, as they get better and better at this new technology that they're putting out there to film these things, and as they get better with that stuff and all the tools, you know, it's like Marvel. Marvel had a rough couple of years. They started out with Iron Man, and that was good, and then Captain America was good, but then like Thor was kind of rough, and then Thor 2 was kind of rough, and Iron Man 2 was kind of rough, you know. It took Marvel a couple years to find its legs with Disney and Marvel. So I'm hoping Star Wars will be the same.
Yeah, agreed. I think in the future, we'll still get the same genres of movies. It'll just be all movies will have superheroes or Star Wars characters in them.
Yeah.
It'll still be like family drama, you know, like a heist movie, but it'll all just have like Marvel characters or Star Wars characters.
Exactly. Like instead of a character drama about like a man snapping, we get that through the eyes of Joker now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like we get like the superhero version of that. Like we get Taxi Driver, the superhero version.
I'm excited about the superhero version of Sophie's Choice.
Yeah.
The Star Wars version of Little Women.
Oh boy, I would love that.
Okay, anything else about Mandalorian, guys?
No, I'm. That's it for me.
I have one last thing, and I just want to say that my favorite bit of casting in this whole series was Werner Herzog.
Oh yes, yeah.
I find him to just be like so watchable, and I don't know, the way that he like delivers the dialogue, just like, I don't know, it feels so right to me.
Yeah.
More so than like Carl Weathers.
I like what Carl Weathers is doing though, but it's funny, but it's weird.
Yeah, it's funny and it's weird, but like, I don't know, if Werner Herzog just fits so well, and like there's such a gravitas to everything that he says. Like he says like Star Wars terms that we've heard a million times.
Yeah.
But when they come out of his mouth, they feel so important. Like he says parsec at one point, and I'm just like, oh, like I don't know. I found myself
it's
really
like
thinking about a parsec.
Time.
Yeah, exactly. Hearing it for the first time.
My favorite's whenever they're like, I want to see the baby, and he's like, he's sleeping. He's like, we will all be quiet.
Yeah, he's great on screen, but like I gotta say, I mean, half of that comes from also just like all the charming stuff I heard about him, you know, backstage. You know, like I think we may have talked about this, but there's a story about him calling Jon Favreau a coward, you know, and Dave Filoni for not wanting the puppet of Baby Yoda in there. Just, I don't know, the whole idea of Werner Herzog being in a Star Wars, you know, even if it's a TV show, is really great. It makes me happy.
Yeah. And I was so sad when he got shut up.
You go back in time and talk to our like 2009 selves, or like 2010, like 10 years ago, and be like, guys, in 2019 or 2020, you guys are going to be talking about how great the new Star Wars live action series is. By the way, we hadn't had any new Star Wars at that point since Revenge of the Sith. And then be like, there's a new Star Wars live action TV series. It's going to be really good. And it's going to have Werner Herzog as like the primary villain.
Yeah. And the best part of the show.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
It would have felt like make-believe.
Yeah. Well, that's as good a place as any to end a discussion on Mandalorian Season 1, I think.
Yeah.
So now we go to the real business of the show.
Yeah. All right, the main event.
You've listened to a long and complex case, murder in the first degree. A premeditated murder is the most serious charge tried in our criminal courts. You're faced with a grave responsibility. Thank you, gentlemen.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I happen to have tickets to that ball game tonight. Yanks in Cleveland.
I tell you, we were lucky to get a murder case.
Even when it's an open and shut case like this one, I mean, did you ever hear so much talk about nothing?
I just think he's guilty. I thought it was obvious from the word go.
He was born in a slum. Slums are breeding grounds for criminals. I know it, and so do you. Was Bodie not guilty?
oh boy, there's always one.
Those two witnesses were the entire case for the prosecution.
Supposing they're wrong.
Couldn't change my mind if you talked for 100 years.
What does it mean?
The odds are 1,000,000 to 1.
It's possible.
But not very probable.
I mean, they're born liars.
Only an ignorant man can believe that.
We're trying to put a guilty man in the chair where he belongs.
Who tells you that you have the right to play like this with a man's life?
You can't send someone off to die on evidence like that.
He didn't change his vote. I did.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm convinced. Not guilty.
You lousy bunch of bleeding hearts.
It's also possible for a lawyer to be just plain stupid, isn't it? I mean, it's possible.
You sound like you met my brother-in-law once.
All right, so as always with our Criterion films, they have been out for a while, so most people have seen them, so we're not going to do a spoiler-free section. So if you haven't seen 12 Angry Men and you don't want to know anything about it, stop listening now, go watch that movie, and then come back and finish listening. You have been warned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't get angry at us.
Yeah.
12 Angry Men, directed by Sidney Lumet, starring Henry Fonda, Lee J. Cobb, Martin Balsam, which I
Ed
don't...
Begley.
Mm-hmm. The IMDb synopsis says, a jury holdout attempts to prevent a miscarriage of justice by forcing his colleagues to reconsider the evidence. So, guys, I wasn't here last week, so I would like to get us kicked off if you don't mind.
Please.
Go for it.
Okay, so 12 Angry Men was a movie that I first saw either in my late teens or early 20s when I was first getting into all kinds of movies. This movie, 12 Angry Men, came up pretty quickly amongst all the, like, hey, if you want to learn about film, this is a good classic, you know? That came up pretty quick. So it wasn't long till I got to watch it. I think this was my first Henry Fonda film. Definitely not my first Sidney Lumet, though. I think that was actually before The Devil Knows You're Dead. I actually watched that before I even knew who Sidney Lumet was.
Yeah.
Anyway, since then, I have recognized just how many great movies Sidney Lumet has made.
Yep.
This was his first feature film out of television, and I think you can kind of tell that in a little bit of the blocking and some of the camera movements, but overall, I think this is a really, really well-made movie. It's simple, it's well-paced, there are no flashbacks, there are no changes of scenery. It's a small, cramped room. I think maybe some of the dialogue and some of the blocking kind of shows its age a little bit, but equally to that, though, so many of the themes and topics discussed in this movie are still so relevant today that it's actually, I think, no matter when you watch this movie, it's going to feel pretty timeless. So overall, I think this movie is great. It holds up. I liked it just as much as I watched or did when I watched it when I was 19 or 20. Something about Henry Fonda's performance in this movie just seems so sincere and so honest and so everyman. It's almost like Henry Fonda being the most James Stewart he could.
I think I saw in the credits that he was a producer on it too.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it was a bit of a passion project for him, you know, that he felt something for, you know, the themes and the, you know, purpose of the movie.
Well, I would hope so. But anyways, that's me. I'm done with that. Those are my thoughts on 12 Angry Men. It's still good, still holds up. So what about you, Chris?
Yeah, I really like this movie too. This is like, you know, my second or third time watching it. It's kind of one of those like that they show to you like in school or you know, like,
yeah, I never saw. I had to seek it out on my own.
Okay,
so did I.
Well, maybe they showed it to me in school then, and I extrapolated that to everybody. So that's my bad. Yeah,
I watched Mean Girls in school.
I watched Remember the Titans.
Both about angry people. So it's very similar. Anyways, 12 Angry Men. This movie made me sad. And for the reason that it came out in 1957 and it felt so relevant to today. But it's great. And I think, Mike, you're right that it does, and it will always, unfortunately, feel relevant because there's always, you know, those issues that are going on. I like the way that it's filmed. It's filmed in a very claustrophobic way, and you're in that room the whole time.
Very straightforward way.
Yeah, in a very straightforward way. I believe in 1954 it was a television play essentially, and then it became a stage play, and then it became this movie. So that's it is a television, like it's shot like it was for television, that's how I would imagine you would shoot it, probably very cheaply, but there's something about the performances that elevate it from just feeling like a TV show, and maybe that's why. Maybe it's the script that elevates it, really. And that's why, like, so many community theaters can get away with doing this play over and over again. And that's because the words in it are so profound and relevant to whatever situation you're in, or, like, relevant to whatever's going on in the day, I think. I think Henry Fonda's really good in this. Yeah, so I enjoyed this. How about you, Justin?
Well, I enjoyed it, too. It's good.
Done.
Episode over.
Episode done. What more can I add on to it that you guys haven't said? You guys are right that it's well acted. It's very competently made, if not, I think there's a point that you brought up, Mike, about it kind of feeling like a TV at one point. And of course, nowadays TV is like movies and there's not a whole lot of a difference, but back at this time, I think there was a bit of a difference. And what I will add to it, because I basically agree with everything you guys have said, it's super relevant. The story's great. The script is really like tight and good, and it's claustrophobic, all of that. What I will add is just that this was one of those films that I watched when I was, I want to say, skeptical about older films. Like, I had grown up with my grandparents from like the third grade on. So, I didn't have a lot of like shared interests with them, and they watched a lot of old black and white things. And, I think as you do sometimes when you're younger, you think like the things that your grandparents and your parents are into are boring. Right. Mm-hmm. So I just had this perception of like a black and white movie is is and this is probably when I was like 20, I want to say. And this was the second older movie that I had actually like sat down to watch. Like, by older, I guess I mean like 1960s or earlier.
Classic, quote.
Classic, yeah. The first, I'll give Chris credit to, he took me to go see Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo in a theater. And that was like the first like classic movie I'd ever seen. And I was really great. And I was so impressed by it. And I was like, I need to seek out some more. And 12 Angry Men was like one I had heard about, and is like everywhere on like great movies. So this was like literally the second classic movie I ever watched. And I credit this movie with kind of solidifying my understanding that like classic films aren't boring, or black and white films aren't boring, because it's partially because the movie's great, and partially because classic black and white movies aren't inherently boring. But I think if you had told me about this movie going in, like, oh, it's 12 jurors sitting in a room and it's black and white and they just talk about a murder case. And I don't know. I feel like I would have thought that sounded really boring. And this movie is like, the furthest thing from boring to me. It's so fascinating, and I think the themes are so relevant, like in terms of racism and some of those like kind of surface level themes that are apparent. But what really spoke to me, I think, this time was this idea of questioning everything and asking questions instead of accepting like the status quo, or accepting like everything that you see as fact, and not just like trying to think, a level above that and look at things more objectively. And whether that be, the juror that wants to get out of there because he has tickets to a ball game, or whether it be someone else that, is racist. So he assumes that the guy did it and doesn't really question the evidence, or, whether it's someone who's just listening and is just like, oh no, it makes sense to me. I can see it, and doesn't like go that level deeper of thinking about things. Like, I think that's just like really important. And that is what felt like the most relevant to me. Looking at the way that we interact with each other on like social media and have debates, and the way that people feel about like where they get their news and stuff like that, is like, this is kind of like a blind acceptance sometimes, and inability to like look at things objectively now. And it really moved me to the point where like I got just like thinking about all of that, like the movie kind of choked me up, not because of the content that it was in it, but kind of like what you said, Chris, is like the movie made me sad for how relevant it feels. And
for humanity.
Yeah. And I don't know, it really moved me this time, and I liked it even better than I did the first time, as great movies tend to do. They get better when you rewatch them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that what you're saying is absolutely right. That struck me this time as well. Only something else kind of struck me as well, and that is that we all want to consider ourselves the Henry Fonda character, juror number 8, I believe. We all want to think we would be him in this situation. Level-headed, not quick to pass judgment, not letting in our prejudices and our preconceived notions and our plans for the evening cloud our judgment. Or, if we're not him, we'd at least want to be juror number 4. If we're going to be on the wrong side of history, we'd at least want to be the guy who is cool and collected and doesn't let emotion play into it, and he's very logic-based and fact-based,
Yeah.
That man represents the cool, level-headed skeptic that we all want to be when we question things. Those two, I think, are the best case scenarios of what we could hope to be in this situation. And then every other character is some shade in between.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what struck me, I guess, is the idea that we can let things affect our decision making and we don't even realize that they are. Look at juror number 3, right? The one who has a rocky relationship with his son. And he had such a bad relationship with his son that it's literally having him take out his own baggage on this kid he knows nothing about. Or like the guy who wants to go watch the game, or the guy, and then eventually once it gets 6-6 and he realizes that it's going to be even longer unless he switches sides just to get it over with faster so he can get out of there. Do these actions inherently make these people bad? That's the question I'm left with. Like, because they can't get past their own personal baggage and they can't comprehend the massiveness of the decision they're making, are they automatically bad people because they're not as thoughtful as Henry Fonda? That's really what I was focusing on this time, is the idea that you can be a good man and not even realize the terrible things you're doing just by the way you're looking and approaching life,
Right. Yeah, the fact that and I think actually he was the most frustrating, the baseball player guy, not player, but like the guy that wanted to go see the baseball game was the most frustrating to me, even more so than the racist, or the guy that's dealing with his son. And that's because he's holding this kid's life in his hands, right? And the baseball game's more important, and so he'll switch to whichever side he thinks is going to get him out quicker, is essentially. And that's almost more morally, no, it's not more morally deplorable than being a racist or but
it's not at least morally deplorable,
yeah, it's morally deplorable, at least that other guy had beliefs, does that make sense? Even though I 100% disagree with him, I would rather have somebody that has beliefs than somebody that's just going to be like, well, whatever gets us out of here quicker. Like,
yeah, the guy you'd rather be the guy who proudly embraces what he thinks is right versus the guy that doesn't even realize the damage he does by his haphazardness.
That thinks the baseball game's more important than some guy's life, right?
Yeah. But the thing is, I don't even know that he even connects the dots. He's just like, okay, they tell me he's guilty. He's guilty. I'm not even going to think about it too hard because, it seems like he's just trusting everyone is smarter than he is and he's just not going to think. And I feel like that struck me as very true to how people are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think something else about that guy is that he very much strikes me as the type of guy that is, rather than listening, he's seeing when he can get his word in, because that's his sort of his shtick throughout. He's just making jokes the whole time and making wisecracks and smart aleck remarks, right? That are you listening or are you trying to be funny? And that's part of his not caring, right? That's just another listening is important. Is listening as important as being the guy who's funny too. It's another thing that I think he's one of the most unlikable people for that reason too.
Yeah.
The other being the racist guy is probably the worst. the one who's like most obviously like morally a bad person, because I agree about juror number 3 who's with the son, because like you said, he's bringing in these baggage, but what a lot of these people are operating on, or at least like the way that it works for the racist guy and those guys, like confirmation bias of like, you know, juror number 3 has like hard feelings against his young son who's about the same age. Juror number 10, you know, has deplorable views of minorities, right?
Yeah.
And just assumes like, okay, well, he did it. Look at him. You know, they all do that is essentially what he says. They're all horrible people. So it's just that like they don't think about it because it aligns with their beliefs.
Yeah.
And is that, I mean, being racist is obviously wrong, but like in the case of juror number 3, is it wrong that confirmation bias works on him? You know, I don't think so, because it's human.
Right. And that's what's so appealing and attractive about the juror number 8, the Henry Fonda character, the one we all wish we were, right? The one who can see the hypocrisy and can see the human error at play and is above all of that, right? And then, you know, we all want to be then. And then also at the same time, like I mentioned earlier, if we're not him, we all want to be the one who will change their mind without any hint of pride as soon as the evidence overwhelmingly points to a specific place, you know? And these two represent the way things should be, you know, in a perfect world. Anyway, that really stuck out to me this time, is the idea that Henry Fonda is a good man, but I don't know that, with the exception of maybe a couple of them, I don't know that any of those men are bad men.
No, and that's kind of what makes it.
Yeah, and their inability to comprehend the severity of their actions and the realization when it dawns on them exactly what their actions will or will not lead to. And as they all slowly, one by one, start to realize the error of their ways and their own unique perspectives and how they were wrong. That's so fascinating to watch. Each time someone flips to the other side of the vote, you're just like, oh, this is huge. Yes. You know, like,
yeah,
this is awesome.
For sure. I think Henry Fonda's character, although we all want to strive to be him, I think he's almost unattainable. You know, like exactly. It's a Jesus character. Yeah. We all fit somewhere else in that pool. Even then, I think we'd be more close to the logic guy, but like we'd all fit somewhere else. Like we all prioritize ourselves over others, you know?
Yeah.
And
we're
like
probably
our own
all
time.
Closer to the guy in advertising who keeps flip-flopping because he doesn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like,
that's
I'm
who
not sure.
I related most to.
Yeah. I was like, well, that's got a good point. I changed my vote.
Yeah.
But at least, you know, like as opposed to the baseball player guy, I would rather be the advertising guy than the baseball player guy. There's like, whichever gets me out of here quicker, you know, at least he may be easily convinced, but at least he's voting with his conscience, you know, or voting to his heart, you know, as opposed to voting to whatever's going to get him out of there quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I don't know how much you guys want to discuss about like these people, but if you have anything else on this specific topic, otherwise I think I move us on.
Yeah,
you can do that.
Yeah, I'm just curious. This concept of this movie, you know, basically all taking place inside of like the jury room. Were you guys at all disappointed in the movie not ending when they all walk out, as opposed to we get that kind of like tacked on scene outside of the courthouse? And if you weren't disappointed, why do you think that scene is there? Because it's pretty minimal, but I just want to get you guys' thought on that.
You know, I noticed that this time. It did feel weird to me, but also I felt like it was just bookending the beginning of the movie, because we don't start out in that room either. You know what I mean? We start out in the courtroom itself, and we even get a shot of the defendant before we go into the room. So as a bookend, it doesn't bother me, because, you know, if you zoom out, all the shots are in that room except for the beginning and end of the movie. So it's symmetrical in that sense. It bookends in a nice way.
Yeah.
But I also think that it would have been cool if we start and ended as they entered and left the room, in my opinion. But
yeah,
makes no difference now, I guess. But pretty minimal. But I agree that it would have been cool to never leave the room at all.
Yeah, I did like the ending. I don't disagree with it would have been cool to have started and ended in the room. I do like the idea that everybody returns to their life. They did this really important thing, which is like carried out justice. And we all get jury summons and we all complain about it. But they did this really important thing. and then they all return to their lives and will probably never see each other. They did it as a team, and then they're just going to return back and, never see each other again. And I did kind of enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah. But you could have had that scene between him and the older man. You could have had that scene in the room also. Like they could have been the last ones to leave, and he could have just been like, "Hey, what's your name? Mine's this. Well, see you later."
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was thinking, is like trying to apply, like, this movie is about them in the room. Why do we have this scene? And I guess the best thing I could come up with was like, they all walk back out into the world, and are they going to take these, lessons they should be learning from the situation out into the world now and maybe be a little bit more nuanced, or is it life back to normal?
It felt more like life back to normal for me.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, there is that one line. We're talking about the frustrating juror, the one who wants to go to the baseball game. There's one point where he actually walks away from the older man, and the older man's like, "Come back here, I'm talking to you." And then Henry Fonda's character basically has to be like, "Don't. He won't hear you, and he never will."
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like just because Henry Fonda shamed him doesn't mean he learned a lesson.
Yeah.
Right.
I think if I'm going to knock this movie for anything, and I'm not even really knocking the movie, I'm just, I think I find myself slightly disappointed that the last bit of evidence that tips everybody over, it ends up being that glasses thing, like the indentions on the nose from wearing glasses. With this type of movie, and I think this isn't what the movie's about, so it doesn't matter too much, but I kind of want that sort of detail to be something that I can pick up on, being hinted at earlier in the film, or something that feels like it was something I could have caught if I was trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do think you're right. It's not about that. But I felt the same thing. It actually kind of reminded me of, some of the evidence reminded me of Richard Jewell. How there's this one thing that was obvious that made it so that he couldn't have done it. And so some of that evidence seemed like they should have already, the lawyers, everybody should have already picked up on this.
Well, they did address that, because Henry Fonda was basically like, "What kind of lawyer is this?"
Lawyer,
and it's a public defendant. Basically, those lawyers suck. So it's they did address that in the movie. I do believe that a public defendant would not catch that.
Yeah, he also didn't get it.
Yeah, I definitely don't feel it in a way of how did nobody figure that out? What a gap in logic that the lawyers didn't point that out. Because I'm with the fact that he doesn't get good representation because he's a minority, and the public defendant might not care.
Yeah, on retainer, he gets assigned X amount of cases a day. You know what I mean? He doesn't have time to research this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I don't have a problem with that part of it. It's just, as an audience member, as a viewer, if it had been something that I feel like I could have figured out.
Yeah.
That would have been a little more fun, that's what's fun about mystery novels sometimes and things is trying to figure it out. And that's not necessarily what's fun about this movie, but there is just a little bit of a,
yeah, the Ocean's 12 does, where they find out that the MacGuffin was already stolen 45 minutes before.
Yeah, and I was like, well, there was no way for me to know that, and all it is, it could have been any other thing,
Yeah.
At that point,
I
didn't have to do any setup work to get there, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. The one thing that distracted me this time around was, I will say that the blocking is a little hokey in some places.
I have one real hokey blocking pet peeve. I'm curious if you have the same one.
The scene where the racist guy starts going off on a rant, and they all just shame him by turning their back and looking at the walls.
Oh yeah. They all slowly get up and get up from. I don't even want to be at the same table as you.
Yeah, but they don't go talk somewhere else. They all go stand by themselves in individual places in the room and stare at the walls. That felt a little bit okay, all right. Come on.
Yeah, it's a little bit forced, but I did kind of enjoy the idea of these people all disagree and have different thoughts and are angry and don't like each other. But as soon as this guy starts going off on an extremely racist rant, everybody kind of unites.
Yeah, unites behind that being ignorant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea behind it. I'm just saying the blocking is a little bit a little bit corny in today, in a 2020 lens.
Yeah, that's fair. I think what I noticed in terms of blocking was it seemed like every time the racist juror started talking, he would get up and walk around and then come back and sit down in his chair. It's like every time he said something, it was like he'd get up and like start ranting. And it just felt like kind of repetitive and like weird. What are you going to do in a room? But yeah,
I said earlier that it was like a television show, and I actually want to revise that. And this felt more like a staged, they film staged plays, and that's what this felt more like. Like all the jurors turning away from the racist guy. That feels like a thing you do on stage as opposed to a thing you do in film, right? Yeah. And same thing with getting up, walking, because you got to draw attention by getting up, and then you walk around while you're talking, and then you sit back down when you're done, and then the next juror, type of thing. So it feels more like a film stage play as opposed to like a TV show. They're doing a play as opposed to like using the medium, the film medium to its fullest.
Yeah, I agree. And this probably comes from the fact that this is Sidney Lumet's first feature film. Yeah. Coming from the world of television and I assume directing for television and television plays and stuff like that. So, it makes sense. It's not a super huge deal. It's just one of the things that, you do notice on an otherwise pretty great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the one thing.
The age of it.
Yeah, it might. Yeah, exactly. Compared to the rest of it, which feels so contemporary.
Yeah, and so timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as an actor, I've never had an opportunity to audition for this play, but it's super intimidating because if you get cast in this part or in any part, you're on stage the whole time. So, like, you may not be Henry Fonda's character. You may be a character that doesn't talk very much, but, like, you have to pay attention and, put all your energy into it. Yeah, for an hour and a half. I like the roles where, like, you go on for a little bit and then you go backstage and chill out for a little bit and then go back on stage.
Yeah. I understand. I don't like being on stage, and as little as I could do that, I would be more into that than being on there the whole time.
For sure.
Cool. Well, does anybody have anything else they want to talk about for 12 Angry Men?
No. That does it for me.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So let's move into picking the new Criterion poll.
Woohoo! Haven't done this in forever.
I know. So with these polls, we'll each choose a film based on a theme, and then you guys will get to vote on it on Twitter. And again, our Twitter is @CasualCinecast. Mike, do you want to tell the people what this week's theme is?
I sure do. We don't have one, so we came up with Blindspots. So these are movies we have not seen. We each chose a film that we want to see, has always eluded us.
Yes.
So here you go. You get to help us get rid of these blind spots, audience. So thanks in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to get us started?
I think Chris does. That's what I heard him say way earlier, I swear.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go first. So there is... So at the beginning of the year, Criterion usually releases an email that has like a little drawing in it that like hints at what's to come for the year, right?
Sure.
And there's a bunch of box sets that was actually teased. And one of them was a Wong Kar-wai box set, which brings to mind that I don't like Wong Kar-wai right now. And a lot of people do. A lot of people really do. I do like Chungking Express, but the other movies I've seen of his, I don't like very much. And I think I need to see, like, peak Wong Kar-wai. So I am picking In the Mood for Love.
Yay.
And hopefully that will change my opinion on Wong Kar-wai, and I'll enjoy the box set when it comes out.
Yeah. I hope it does too. I am kind of mixed on Wong Kar-wai. I think I like half the movies I've seen, and then I don't like the other half. So, yeah, I respect.
I think I've
what
only
you're saying.
seen the half that you don't like.
Yeah, maybe.
So, I mean, I like Chungking Express, but all the other ones I'm not a big fan of. And every time I tell somebody that, I get this really weird look from them, and it's embarrassing. So
I don't know, man. I think like Chungking Express is half good and half kind of underwhelming. Like I'm kind of mixed on Chungking Express. I do really like In the Mood for Love, though.
Okay, so maybe I mean, I liked what I saw of Chungking Express, so we'll
I
see.
like Chungking
I haven't
Express,
seen that
but I just don't like the slow motion choppy effect that he keeps using repeatedly. But once you get over that and adapt to it, I really like Chungking Express.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I guess I will go next. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with a film that I don't really know much about, but I've been wanting to see since I saw it, announced, because it just seems kind of like a rad movie. And that is Thief from Michael Mann.
Oh, sweet. Cool.
Ooh, yeah, nice.
Have either of you guys ever seen that?
No. I almost watched it the other day, though, because it was on some streaming service that I can't remember for free. And I was like, I should watch this. I've always wanted to, but then I didn't.
Yeah. And it just seems kind of like a very cool movie. It's 1981, young James Caan.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems really cool. And that's kind of the movie I'm in the mood to watch right now. So that's why I'm going with this one versus there are some other like bigger, so-called more important films
it seems
that
so,
I haven't seen from Criterion.
Yeah. It seems so saturated and colorful. And so like 80s.
Yeah, and I kind of want to see classic Michael Mann because he has some movies that I do like, but then some that I don't.
Yep.
So I want to go, see one of his that seems like a classic.
You know what I would like to watch again now as like an older person with better tasted movies? I would like to watch
Public Enemies.
No. I watched that one when my taste in movies was sufficient, I think. I still don't like it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking of Collateral, first of all.
Yeah.
Because I did not like Collateral when it first came out, and I did not like Miami Vice when it came out.
Right.
And I would like to watch both of those again.
I remember I enjoyed Collateral, but yeah, both of those are good revisits, probably.
Yeah. Anyway, just a food for thought.
Yeah.
My movie that I want to choose for my blind spot is a film that I chose last time that did not win, and I doubt it will win going up against these two. But I'm going to try it again anyway, and that is David Lean's Brief Encounter.
I feel like you've chosen that one several times. Maybe you just do it each time we do blind spots.
I think twice I've chosen it, honestly. But you know what? I keep hearing it's one of the best like British films ever made. So I got to see it eventually, and I can't be bothered to see it on my own time.
Yeah,
you got to be forced into it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, to recap, Chris chose In the Mood for Love from Wong Kar-wai. I chose Thief from Michael Mann, and Mike chose Brief Encounter from David Lean. So by the time you're hearing this, there will be a poll on our Twitter account. The link will be in the show notes. So click on that and vote for which one of those we're going to cover next.
Yeah. Please and thank you.
All right. And with that, we are done with this episode, correct?
Correct. Affirmative.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening. And thank you, Mike, for responding like a robot.
Affirmative.
Or Arnold Schwarzenegger. I feel like he says affirmative. Oh,
when he's playing a robot.
Where he is a robot, yeah. Cool. But yeah, thanks for listening. And thank you, Jake Wagner Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/Bopscotch.
Nailed it.
You almost got it in there.
Nope, nailed it perfectly.
You're editing, so you can just insert yourself.
Yeah. Just kidding. SoundCloud.com/Bopscotch. I don't want to edit it.
Yeah.
There you go. You heard it twice.
Yeah.
Stay tuned to this channel. Next week, we will be putting out an episode on the most anticipated films for 2020. Then, in the coming weeks, we will be doing a best of 2019 and a best of the decade. Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of good
excited.
stuff.
Yeah, and in between each of those, we'll be doing the Criterions. We're not going to give those up again like we did in December.
At least not till next December.
That's right.
Yeah, until there's another swarm of new movies that are so overwhelming that we can't possibly fit in Criterion.
We didn't even get to fit in all the movies that came out in December that we wanted. I mean, that are really worth talking
about. I know.
Like
I have a list of 16 movies here I have to see before we record our best of the year, or at least try to see.
Oof. Yeah.
I know.
I think I've got like 4. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to see all 16. Some of them are like C, D list, but hey,
Cool. Well, you got a few weeks.
Yeah, I got some time.
All right. Well, if you want to send us any questions or topics to discuss on any of the movies we're going to be talking about, I guess we're not talking about a specific movie next week, but if you want to let us know what your most anticipated films for 2020 are, you can send those to Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at casualcinecast, or you can email those to casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys, and we will see you next time.
Affirmative.
So dumb.
Bye.
Comic gold.
Yeah.